Hello there, world history people. Let's keep learning about totalitarians, and today is all about the biggest totalitarian in all world history, Adolf Hitler. So we're going to deep dive into this guy's life, figure out how a poor Austrian kid managed to take over Germany and ultimately lead to the greatest war in all of world history. So, Adolf Hitler was born in 1889 to a low class family. His father had lots of different jobs, but I know for a long time he was kind of a immigration and inspection worker along the Austrian and German border. And several times through Hitler's life, he kind of like lived in Germany, lived in Austria. And when World War One started, Hitler tried to join the military for World War One, but he was deemed too physically weak to join the war. As the war went on, however, those requirements were reduced and reduced, and eventually Hitler got in. But there is this documentary called The Greatest Story Ever Told. And look, Adolf Hitler is a terrible, terrible human being. But it's, in a way, impressive how this poor Austrian kid came real close to taking over the world. I'm real glad he didn't take over the world, but it's a story that we've really got to learn from. All right, let's keep going on. So let's see. This is baby Hitler right here. So was Hitler born evil or did he become evil? That's always a great question. And then here's, I think, Hitler's first grade class. Can anyone identify the future Nazi leader? I'll tell you, it's the kid at the top middle, kind of standing over everybody else. There's little Adolf right there. Okay, so yeah, he joined the German military in World War One. It's kind of interesting that he wasn't a German national, but he kind of vibed with Germany way more than he ever did with Austria. And by all accounts, he was a good soldier in the war. He served admirably. He got medals for bravery. And at the very end of the war, he was attacked by poison gas. And the war ended when he was recovering in a hospital from that gas attack. And he said gas should never be used against soldiers. And that's why gas wasn't used in World War II, largely because of his personal experience with gas. Well, I mean, it wasn't used on the battlefield, but Hitler did use gas on civilians, which is really terrible. Anyway, after the war, he applied to art school, and he got rejected from art school. So when Hitler was in his early 20s, he kind of moped around Austria for a few years, being poor and unemployed. So in his early 20s, he was at basically the lowest point of his life, yet he's going to rise all the way up the ranks and take over Germany. So, yep, gets rejected from art school, starts World War II. And so here's actually some of Hitler's art. I think it's just kind of interesting for students to see what Hitler was about when he was a young man. So he always liked to draw flowers or buildings. Isn't that interesting? That was his kind of his prime mode. So yeah, he drew a bunch of buildings. These are probably buildings he saw that were bombed out during World War One. Here he drew kind of a castle, and you can see some of the windows are a little bit off, and the shading's a little bit off. So he really wasn't a fantastic artist. And there's like no detail on this building at all. So yeah, he gets rejected from art school. Here he is using some shadowing effects. This building's kind of interesting. I think the tiles aren't perfectly level. And then you have drew flowers. And yeah, here's probably a battlefield in World War One. Okay, so if you remember from my lesson about the end of World War One, Germany was having crazy hyperinflation. As a result of them trying to pay off the Treaty of Versailles, Germany just started printing money and printing money and printing money. And as a result, their economy just went totally in terrible places. So Hitler decides to join a fledgling political group called the Nazi Party. I think he becomes Nazi Party member number 37, if I recall. And the Nazi Party stands for the German National Socialist Workers' Party. Sometimes you'll see NSDAP in some documents about it. But yeah, and then I wrote in blue kind of the German name for this new political party. But it will absolutely turn into fascism. And I talked at length with fascism in the last video. So this is what Hitler's going to be all about. All right, so remember, hyperinflation, the German economy just gets totally wrecked. You used to buy a loaf of bread for $1 or 1 mark, and then 5 years later, it costs you 200 trillion marks for one loaf of bread. That's crazy. Here's kids just cutting up money. And this just shows you the full length of Germany's hyperinflation. Let's hope something like this never ever happens in the United States, because your economy is just totally wrecked. Okay, so Hitler gives a bunch of passionate speeches. He riles up support for the Nazis, uses a lot of the same techniques that Mussolini uses, and he gets elected to be their leader. As soon as Hitler is their leader, he's the one who decides to give them the symbol of the swastika, this symbol of power for the Nazis. And if you recall from my religion unit at the beginning of the year, he kind of stole this symbol from the Buddhists, which is super rude. But he decides to make this the new symbol of his organization. So, yep, there's the Nazi symbol. Here it was carved into a school bathroom I went to one time. I was like, man, what are these kids doing? And then there's Hitler hanging out with some of his other people at the start of the Nazi Party. And here he is giving a speech to a bunch of people. And I found this newspaper clipping. I think there's one part of this that I really want to read. It's talking about Adolf Hitler. He gets in charge of Germany. And then where does it have it right here? Hitler, out of prison, took advantage of the groans. He told people that he would make Germany great again. He blamed Jews, socialists, communists, and others for the troubles of the land. Anyway, I think that part's really interesting. Okay, so Hitler did not do it alone. Hitler had a whole bunch of buddies that helped him get power and help him control the Nazi government. So I'm going to cover a lot of those people right now. But the only person you'll ever really see on a test is Hitler's best friend, Joseph Goebbels. Here, I'll zoom in on a picture of him. This is Joseph Goebbels, just a terrible Nazi. He was the minister of propaganda, and he was sort of like the vice president of Nazi Germany. He had some pretty crazy ways of controlling what was in the media, controlling what people heard, what people saw. He was rabidly anti-Semitic, just hated Jewish people. And at the very end of the war, after Hitler commits suicide, he decides to join Hitler in suicide. And he also poisons all of his own children because he doesn't want them to live in a world without Hitler. That's just terrible and disgusting. All right, Adolf Eichmann, he was the head of the Nazi SS. He's going to be responsible for killing millions of Jewish people. Albert Speer, he's probably the only person on this list that I have maybe any respect for. Albert Speer wasn't a hardcore Nazi. I mean, he did join the Nazi Party so he could get involved in government. He was a really intellectually talented guy, probably one of Hitler's favorite people on this list just because he knew how smart he was. And Albert Speer managed the war economy of Germany during World War II. He's also the only person on this list who survives after World War II for an extended period of time. And he writes this book, and I read a lot of that book in college that just really detailed so much of how the Nazis came to power and how they ran World War II. Hermann Göring right here, this fat jerk Nazi man. He was a pilot in World War I. He becomes the commander of the German Air Force in World War II. And by all accounts, he's just a total trash human being. He personally stole a bunch of stuff from these countries that the Nazis took over. He was really addicted to drugs. He really mismanaged a lot of things. But he always had loyalty to Hitler, and Hitler, was cool with him, I guess. All right, and then here's Heinrich Himmler, who's probably the third in command of the Nazi Party. He was the one that really pushed the idea of using gas to kill Jews, and he's just one of the worst human beings ever. And if some people say, like, what if we somehow assassinated Hitler? What if Hitler never rose to power? Well, I think Heinrich Himmler could have filled the role of Hitler and maybe even done even worse atrocities on planet Earth. That's how bad this guy was. And then Eva Braun, Hitler's girlfriend. Yes, Hitler had a girlfriend. He married her in his last day on Earth. But by all accounts, she was just kind of like, oh my God, I'm hanging out with the leader of the country. This is so great. She wasn't really a big player with the Nazis, but definitely was the kind of person who Hitler saw that all other women should emulate. You should stay out of politics, you should stay out of government, and you should just kind of be there for your man and for your kids. And then the last one to talk about is Blondie, Hitler's dog. Of course, the breed was a German Shepherd. By all accounts, Hitler loved that dog. And when Hitler decided to commit suicide, he first tested the poison on his dog, watched his own dog die, and then was like, okay, I'm going to use this poison and end it. Whew. So normally I do have this Facebook assignment where you like create a Facebook profile for a totalitarian leader. So ask Mr. Brown if I'm doing that assignment this year, and we'll see what my decision is. But all of these people would be very much active on Hitler's social media were he to have one. So let's check it out. Joseph Goebbels, Adolf Eichmann, Albert Speer, Hermann Göring, Heinrich Himmler, Eva Braun, and Hitler and Blondie. All right, so yeah, let's dive a little bit more into Dr. Goebbels, Joseph Goebbels. He's just totally a terrible, terrible person, but someone who I think you can really dissect and maybe see some presence of in the modern world. Goebbels, he had this quote called, "If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it." In the modern world, when we talk about fake news and we talk about what is truth and what is real, Goebbels was the one who was always manipulating that for the German people. The reason why there were so many good-hearted Germans that went along with World War II and went along with the Nazis is because Goebbels hid the truth from them. Goebbels said all these things and people just believed it without questioning it. You have to be a critical thinker if you're going to fight totalitarian governments. Okay. In the big lie, there is always a certain force of credibility because the broad masses of a nation are easily corrupted by the deeper strata of their emotional nature than consciously or voluntarily. Man, this guy knew how to twist words on people. Okay, so Hitler decided that change wasn't happening fast enough in Germany, and rather than wait for the next election, he decided to do the same thing Mussolini did. Hitler organized a bunch of his buddies together. I mean, there he is with Hermann Göring, that fat Nazi jerk, and some of his other friends. And they wear brown shirts, because Italians wear black shirts. And these brown shirt stormtroopers, you probably recognize that from Star Wars, these guys attempt to take over the government. So they march into the city of Berlin. They hope that the German government will quit. But this time, the German government doesn't quit. In fact, the German government calls the military. His stormtrooper brown shirts get in a fight with the military. Some people die. Ultimately, Hitler is arrested, and he's put in jail for only 1 year, which kind of seems low. And actually, I know Hitler never even served that full year sentence. Eventually gets out in like 6 or 3 months. But while he was in jail, he wrote his only book called Mein Kampf, My Struggle. It's sort of the Nazi Bible. And he outlines all of his ideas for Germany's future. And if anybody wanted to know what the future held, probably should have read the book Hitler wrote. And in that book, he more or less says, I want to start a big war, and I want Germany to take over the world. People should have saw this. People should have done something. No one did. It's really shocking. All right, so there's Hitler giving a speech being like, let's take over the government. Here he is. His guys are marching into the city of Berlin. They march on the capital, but Hitler is put in jail, and in jail he writes a book. Okay, so what does Hitler talk about in that book? It's a whole lot of Nazi ramblings. You're going to read some of it in my class, just so you can see how his brain worked, what he was all about. But there were 4 big ideas in that book that you got to know. The first one is, he said, the German people need to unite and prove they are the master race of the world. And his idea for the German master race is called Aryan. He also said communism and Judaism are evil. They must be annihilated. So that's kind of anti-Semitism, just how much he hates the Jewish people. He said the Treaty of Versailles was unfair and Germany needs a big military. As soon as he becomes in charge of the country, he's just going to start openly violating so many of the ideas in the Treaty of Versailles. And the last thing he talks about is Lebensraum, which means living space, saying that the German people need to grow their borders, take over more land to just expand the German people. And I mean, if you really read that book, you'd be like, wow, this guy wants to create a big military. This guy wants to take over land. This guy really hates Jewish people and communist people. you should probably stop him early. But the world didn't, as I continually say, and it's continually frustrating. Okay, let's check out some of these pictures. So here, this is where you'll find Jewish people in Europe before World War II. The vast majority of them are in the Soviet Union. And so if you know Hitler wants to annihilate the Jewish people, you should probably think maybe he's going to attack here. Maybe you should get ready to play defense. And then this is where you would find German ethnic people all over Europe. You'll see most of them are in the borders of Germany. But almost everybody in the country of Austria speaks German, is ethnically German. I mean, Hitler was one of them. There's a ton of people in Poland who are ethnically German, a lot of people in Czechoslovakia who are ethnically German. So Hitler's goal is to unite all these countries together to have one super German country. And then, yeah, this is sort of his idea that the Jewish people are controlling these other governments. The Nazis got to stand up. He hates the Jews a lot. He hates communism a lot. And he was building up tanks. Oh, no. Okay, so Hitler was in this documentary called The Triumph of the Will. And in that documentary, you can really see his ability to speak and his ability to rile up people and his ability to get people to follow him even in his terrible, terrible ideas. So there he is. He's speaking. He's using gestures. He's just like Mussolini. Will rise up. Yep. And there he is speaking in a whole stadium. Oh my goodness. So Hitler gets out of jail and he participates in the next election. And during the next election cycle, him and all his buddies travel around Germany. They're campaigning for him. Hitler technically doesn't win the election, but he becomes this major leader in government. But very quickly after that, Hitler takes over the whole government and he's in charge of Germany for the rest of his life. But regardless, he was elected by a majority of the German people to get into government. And as soon as he takes over full control, he declares a third Reich, a third kingdom that would last 1,000 years. And his election slogan was Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer, one people, one kingdom, one leader. So he's going to take over the country and be in charge of it for the next, I think, 12, 15 years. All right, Hitler for Reich's president. Here was one of those ballots, and you can see the person voted Ja for Hitler. There's Hitler advertising on a street corner, and then here he is being sworn into office, and they already got all that Nazi crap all around him. Okay, so what happens once Hitler actually takes command? Nazi economics. And the weird thing that I gotta admit, kids, is the Nazis did a good job at improving Germany, getting it out of the Great Depression, getting it out of that hyperinflation. He builds the first highway system on planet Earth. Highways are something that the United States absolutely copies with freeways. He created broadcast television, so they were sending live recordings to people. And actually, the first thing ever broadcast over the airwaves was an Adolf Hitler speech. And in the movie Contact, it's pretty crazy that it's of course a movie, and aliens come to Earth and they say, well, the first thing we saw from planet Earth was this speech from this guy Adolf Hitler. So you really like Adolf Hitler, right? And the whole world's like, no, like it's so bad. But yeah, he brought Germany out of the Great Depression. Germany was definitely one of the most successful countries during the Great Depression, largely because Hitler had complete control over the country and could do these big building projects. And the United States honored Hitler by making him Time Magazine Man of the Year 1938. Oh, we definitely regret that one. But, like the whole world was thinking, wow, like maybe this is going to be a good guy. But as we know, not a good guy. Not a good guy at all. So let's keep checking it out. All right, here's that Autobahn highway system that Hitler built for the German people. And there it is, the same kind of highway signs that we have in the United States. There he is helping out people build stuff, and this idea of Germans building up their country again. There they are building it up. And then this was one of those original broadcast television cameras. Our cameras are way better today. Those were massive, crazy things. And okay, so the whole world saw how effective Germany was at building up its economy. So Germany had the Olympics in 1936. And this Olympics was very different from just about all the other Olympic Games that happened in our history, because this one was Hitler really made it about race. And Hitler just assumed and called it out that Nazi Germans would prove they are, this master super race, and they would win at every event. But the athlete that won the most medals at this Olympic Games was Jesse Owens, an African American. He beat all the Nazis he was up against, and he won, I think 10, 12 gold medals. It set a record for the time, I know that. And famously, during the ending ceremony of the Olympic Games, Adolf Hitler shook hands with all the athletes who won gold medals, but wouldn't shake hands with Jesse Owens. Probably because of racism, which is super rude. Super rude. But good job, Jesse, beating the Nazis in their own game. So, the Olympia in 1936. There's Jesse Owens standing in first place, and a Japanese guy in second place, a German guy in third. And up there they are lighting up the torch. All these Nazi soldiers there standing by. Everybody's doing the Nazi salutes. And yep. So, there we go. Okay, and Nazi social policies. So, the Nazis definitely, right from the beginning, emphasized those ideas Hitler had in his book, saying, we don't like Jewish people. He also said that women of all races needed to show a ethnicity passport if they wanted to get married. He didn't want people of different racial groups to marry each other because he was a racist piece of crap. And so the Nuremberg laws required Jewish people to wear stars of David on their chests, and they limited their freedoms. And at first, Jewish people thought, how much worse could it possibly get? We're Jewish people, we're survivors, we can take it. But I think if the Jewish people knew where ultimately the Nazi policies would end in concentration camps, they definitely would have all gotten out of Germany a lot sooner. But yeah, so anyway, these are social policies. All of it's super racist. So here's one of those ethnic passports that would be checked if people wanted to get married. Hitler deprives Jews of citizenship, bans intermarriages. They're wearing those Stars of David patches so they can be identified in public. And here they are protesting, saying how much they don't like Jewish people. So rude. Okay, and so the Hitler Youth. This is something that also always interested me because Hitler sort of had this mind control effect on young people in Nazi Germany. And, look, I'm an educator. I want to be able to educate my kids to think critically. And the whole point of the Hitler Youth was for children not to think critically. It was to get them all molded in the exact same way. And here's a quote by Hitler. He who controls the youth owns the future. And I think that quote is quite telling, that if you can encourage the children to follow your rules, eventually those children will grow up and they'll kind of be the standard adults in society. And I can tell you, in a lot of the stuff that I've read about the evils that the Nazis do, there's many accounts of children who sell out their own parents when their parents aren't following Nazi doctrine. But yeah, the Hitler Youth was kind of like this Boy Scouts with more of a military focus. And if you remember, the German people were not allowed to have a military as a result of the Treaty of Versailles. So Hitler gets around that by having this Hitler Youth thing where he's like, okay, we're all going to practice camping, and we're going to practice shooting BB guns, and we're going to practice, moving around in difficult patterns and practice marching. Basically, he was preparing everybody to be soldiers, and the world just watched it happen. And so, yeah, these kids were indoctrinated into loving their Führer, their Hitler, and 90% of German children were members, which is crazy. So, oh my goodness. Okay, and yeah, so here's some of that propaganda posters they have. The Boy Scout today, the soldier tomorrow. And even the girls were involved with this too. There's Hitler approving all these kids, and you see how excited they are. Hitler Youth, and yep, bringing it up. And there's kids marching along, trumpeting for the Nazis. Okay, and so the SS and the Gestapo, led by Heinrich Himmler and Adolf Eichmann, they were the secret police, terrorized Jews, and enforced Nazi policies. These guys didn't have to follow rules. If it was written in Mein Kampf, they would do it and be totally legally immune. But a pretty terrible event that occurred in 1938 was an event called Kristallnacht, translates to the Night of Broken Glass. It was because Joseph Goebbels went on the news and said that a Jewish guy killed a German guy. Therefore, the German people should take revenge on the Jews. So Nazis destroyed thousands of Jewish businesses, Jewish synagogues in Germany. They beat up a bunch of Jewish people, and it really was the foreshadowing of what was to come later in World War II. So let's check it out. Here's some of the pictures of Kristallnacht. Here they are tormenting Jewish people, and Nazi guys laughing at them. And then there's the Gestapo. Okay, and Nazi education. I mentioned this a little bit with Hitler Youth, but it was pretty insane what Hitler did. As soon as he took over the country, he fired all teachers at all levels of schooling, all the elementary, all the middle school, all the high school teachers, gone. And he said, if you want your job back, you have to prove that you are a committed member to the Nazi Party. And he also changed the curriculum in public schools, where children wouldn't just learn basic math, they would also learn racist math, where they would have word problems talking about, just racist stuff about Jewish people, racist stuff about communists, racist stuff about Slavs. And it was a very unique system of education that was all designed to force children how to think. If this ever happens to you, be very cognizant. The goal of education is to open your mind, not close it. And that's exactly what happened with the Nazis. Terrible stuff. Terrible stuff. Okay. So here it's kids reading racist children's books. Here they are identifying Jewish symbology. Here they are identifying racial groups and encouraging social Darwinism thinking. And, okay, so Hitler eventually was, as I said, breaking all the rules of the Treaty of Versailles. He started to now openly build up his army, openly build more tanks, planes, submarines. And Britain and France could have stopped him. He was in charge of Germany for like 10 years before World War II started. But no, the rest of the world was still tired of World War I. Just thought, oh, Hitler just likes to watch his, tanks parade around in the city, and he likes to watch these German soldiers march around. He's not a real threat. But he certainly would be, and the world did nothing. So sad. Okay, so Nazis getting ready for war, building up stuff. Here come the tanks. All right, and Japan, I'll save that for the next video. Peace out.